Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Please find a seat if there's one to be had. Before we begin, we're going to establish our quorum, so if a roll could please be called.
Leno?
Here.
Nielsen?
Here.
Allen? Anderson? Bell? Block? Here. Glazer? Hancock? Here. Mitchell? Monning? Here. Morlock? Wynn? Pan? Here. Pavley? Here. Roth? Here. Stone? Wolk?
Thank you. Our quorum is established. Thanks for being so prompt. Today begins the Senate's budget season, so we thank you for joining us for what will be an important hearing as we establish our budget. Know that our Vice Chair, Senator Nielsen, has some opening comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, we do now kind of move into the full gear, the final closing. It's nice that we're in a little bit better shape than we have been, but as the May revise showed, not quite as good as has been anticipated. All that waxes for caution, not profligacy. We do believe that there should be priorities. Roads and public safety certainly are a part of those, and fixing some of our core programs that have been suffering are necessary. And fixing does not simply mean funding, changing. The Senate has been focusing on oversight, and I commend the Senate for that oversight focus. And oversight does not mean justifying what is, it means taking a look at what is and maybe making some changes. The governor has seen some disposition to do that in certain areas, and we need to focus on that as we proceed with our budget. There are some cautions, and the governor has voiced those cautions in his discussion of the May revise. Looming out there could be deficits if we're not careful and prudent, and that's what needs to govern our deliberations here. The subcommittees have bumped up funding, and as we look at that, we're going to have to make sure that those are very prudent and guarded. Some actions have been taken that can oblige us into the future. Base building is something that we have to be very careful about. And there are things that we have acted upon that may have economic impact, such as the minimum wage. We have to anticipate what those will be. This is always a deliberative and laborious process, but we've all shown an ability to work together. I enjoy working with the chairman, and we look forward to the weeks ahead and a budget that will be on time and a prudent one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. As we begin today, I thought it might be helpful to recognize some very good news. We should embrace it when we have it. And our April employment numbers have just come out, and it shows that California created nearly 60,000 new jobs in the month of April alone, representing about 35% of all the new employment created in this country in the past month. So our state's unemployment rate has now dropped to 5.3%, just 0.2% above the national unemployment rate. You may remember it wasn't long ago we were a full 2% above the national unemployment rate. And even here in Sacramento, which has had its own experience with the downturn, 5.1% unemployment rate. Our economy is growing 6 times faster than the federal economy at about 3% of GDP annually. That's by prediction of both the Department of Finance and the Legislative Analyst's Office. Compare that to about 0.5% nationally. Now, we recognize that is not to suggest that all parts of this state are doing equally well, and that will be one of our focuses as we move forward, being sensitive to and recognizing the needs of so many millions of Californians, even in the midst of this recovery. And yes, the governor does make a very strong argument that in the 7th year of an economic recovery, it does not go on forever, and that we do need to be cautious as we continue to make thoughtful and important reinvestments for the people of California in our budget. So this hearing today will consider the actions of the budget subcommittees, and I would be remiss if I did not thank all of our budget subcommittee chairs and committee members for their hours and hours and weeks and months of laborious effort in reviewing every line item in both the January budget and subsequently the May revision of the budget. So sincere thanks to all of your hard work, because it has brought us here today. Last year, we restored essential educational, social service, and health programs, especially in child care, where the state made significant investments. This year, we propose to continue our efforts to rebuild state programs and services which have still not caught up with the economic recovery. Earlier this year, I think we all took some significant pride in restoring major funding with a new and ongoing revenue source for developmental disability programs. This Senate plan adopts the administration's general fund revenue estimates and the Legislative Analyst Office's property tax estimates. It retains the administration's aggressive reserve and infrastructure funding policy, but adopts a more flexible approach that allows for greater discretion to address yet fiscal uncertainties. Key components of the Senate plan include the Senate No Place Like Home proposal, which has been largely embraced by the administration. It's a multifaceted initiative to address homelessness. The bipartisan plan includes a grant program funded through Prop 63 revenue bonds for supportive housing. We include increases in SSI, SSP, more outreach to individuals with disabilities who may qualify for SSI, and additional resources for programs to reduce homelessness for CalWORKs families and for families that are part of the child welfare system. The plan also continues to fulfill our promise to rebuild the state's social safety net by reinvesting in CalWORKs through the elimination of the maximum family grant and by increasing the grant levels for maximum aid payment. The Senate's cap and trade plan incorporates some of the administration's proposal, but makes substantive improvements by increasing funding for transformational climate communities, for green infrastructure, energy efficiency projects, and community outreach for disadvantaged communities. And again, I especially want to recognize and thank the Senate Budget Committees in constructing our plan before us. Their work entailed examining the governor's proposals, making adjustments that meet our priorities, and constructing alternative proposals in a variety of areas. In K through 12 education, we continue to provide ongoing resources for local control funding formula. To address the teacher shortage, there is additional funding for teacher recruitment, preparation, and retention. We fund a college readiness block grant so that all students have the support needed to graduate college. To ensure that our youngest children are provided, we propose increasing rates and access to child care. In higher education, the plan provides additional funds to enroll more undergraduate and graduate students at UC and to increase enrollment at the California State University. Additionally, $200 million more in Prop 98 funding is provided to community colleges for career technical education. In housing, we adopt a tax credit program that will increase the effectiveness of affordable housing programs, adds enforcement staff to investigate housing discrimination complaints, and adds a local grant program for the development of transitional housing for ex-offenders. In health, we augment programs for healthcare workforce development. We fund drug overdose and hepatitis prevention and create a grant program for children's crisis services. We also improve the closure plans for the developmental centers to ease the transition for their residents. In human services, the Senate plan provides augmentations for the Immigration Services Program and the Commercially Sexually Exploited Children Program, as well as makes investments in senior nutrition and the State Emergency Fund Assistance Program, and clarifies the legal protections for immigrant youth. And lastly, in public safety and justice, we invest in positive programs to avoid the criminal justice system, to rehabilitate incarcerated individuals, and to help transition ex-offenders home by repurposing funding for local jails to longer-term and more effective programs. Among our priorities is to increase the availability of transitional housing, mental health, and substance abuse treatment, and services for victims of domestic violence. Overall, this Senate budget plan is a fiscally sound and responsible approach to continue rebuilding our public programs and services for all Californians. So we are going to begin with establishing our revenue so that we can proceed with how we intend to make use of those funds. So on page 4, we have issue 1, which is the state taxes of personal income, sales, use, and corporation. Department of Finance, LAO, welcome.
Jason Sisney from the LAO. The staff recommendation is to adopt the administration's general fund revenue estimates in the 2016-17 budget. At the moment, our office's estimates through 16-17 bottom line are fairly similar to the administration's. So in our view, given that similarity, it'd be reasonable to use either one, and the administration's would be fine. The main difference between our estimates through 16-17 right now is that our office has a working estimate that this year's revenues have a higher proportion of capital gains than the administration does. And so one of the reasons, if you adopt the administration's revenues, to keep a robust reserve in the budget this year could be that next year under Proposition 2, if our estimates on capital gains end up being closer to correct, there could be some significant additional Proposition 2 requirements next year.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. Amy Costa, Department of Finance. Yes, as the analyst notes, really during the period of this forecast, there's very minor differences between the analyst forecast and the forecast offered by the Department of Finance. The May revision did reduce projected revenues for 14-15, 15-16, and 16-17 by about $1.9 billion. And that was largely, the bulk of these changes were reflected through personal income tax revenues and more sluggish sales tax. Again, as the analyst has noted, there are some slight differences between our projections on different revenue sources, but for the most part, they're relatively close.
Great, thank you, Ms. Costa. And I think just to put things in perspective for anyone who may be listening, the $1.9 billion short of projection was over 3 years, and I think that represents an entire 0.5% of total projection. So the estimates were rather accurate.
Yes, we would concur with that.
Quite amazing, just 0.5% off. Any questions for either Ms. Costa or for Mr. Sisney?
Yeah, Mr. Sisney.
Yes. Senator Nielsen.
Mr. Sisney, say 2 years out, 1 and 2 years out, do you see any particular vulnerabilities looming, though, in terms of our revenue stream?
I think with California's revenues, the stock market and its effect on capital gains is always an uncertainty, and it's something that looking, say, 2 or 3 years out, no one can predict. And so in that situation, you know, it would be easy for revenues to be $2 or $3 or $4 billion above or below our projections 2 or 3 years out from differences in the stock market alone. So I think that that's always the top of the list of what could change. I think for the broader economy, there are always a lot of risk and uncertainties in the world. The state's economy has been very reliant in recent years on growth in the Bay Area and the tech industry. And by most accounts, that growth is slowing down, and it had been going at full speed for a number of years, so I think it's understandable, and I think all of our forecasts have really kind of assumed that that growth would slow down. But if the tech industry or home prices in the Bay Area were to sink more precipitously, that also could be something that would be a real jolt to the state's economy. At the moment, no real signs of that, but it is always a risk to pay attention to.
Thank you.
Colleagues, any other questions? So the recommendation is to adopt the administration's general fund revenues. Motion by Senator Wolk. Call the roll, please.
Leno,
Aye.
Nielsen, Allen, Anderson, Bell, Block, Glazer, Hancock, Mitchell, Monning, Morlock, Wynn, Pan, Pavley, Roth, Stone, Wolk,
Aye.
Nielsen was aye.
So the administration's general fund revenues are approved 15-0. Our second item has to do with property tax revenues. LAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Brian Euler from the LAO. The governor's May revision includes an assumption of $19.4 billion and $21 billion in 15-16 and 16-17 respectively in property tax allocations to schools and community colleges, which offsets the state's general fund obligation under Proposition 98. Our office's estimates of property taxes are about $385 million, would result in $385 million in reduced general fund obligation from Proposition 98. These differences aren't actually primarily based in different assumptions about the overall growth in property values, but are actually based more in some methodological differences in some smaller, more technical components of the property tax forecast. In particular, roughly $100 million of the difference is due to a technical error that our office discovered in the administration's calculations of RDA dissolution savings.
We thank you for that.
And an additional, the bulk of the remainder has to do with some methodological differences in estimating the state benefit from ERAF allocations. This item is to adopt our property tax estimates.
Ms. Costa.
Yes, as the analyst noted, Finance did update our property tax revenue forecast to include the most recent data available to us as part of our May revise. This revised estimate increased our property tax forecast from the governor's budget by $356 million. That's over 15-16 and 16-17. And this would shrink the previous difference between our forecast and the LAO forecast to around $330 million over the 2-year period. The administration has been very clear in providing prudent forecast. And so on this particular item, I would just note that the adoption of the LAO's increased property tax estimate does have some implications within the Proposition 98 guarantee. And, as we've stated many times before, estimates regarding the personal income tax, sales and use tax, and corporate taxes, we continue to believe that fiscal prudence should rule the roost here, as it were, and that it's warranted to ensure the state is prepared for the next recession.
Would you disagree with Mr. Euler that this is more about projections or calculation of ERAF and your own calculations?
I think it's fair to note there's a couple items within the property tax calculation in which we have a difference with the analyst, and we have had ongoing conversations. I would say that this difference has shrunk from the January budget to May revise based on some of those ongoing conversations.
I just want to clarify, it's not so much about projecting higher or lower, it's calculating.
There are some complexities involved with the property tax calculation given recent actions on redevelopment and a couple other issues. And so we have gone back and forth with the analyst on some of those numbers.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Euler. Any questions from the committee? Yes, Senator Morlock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With property taxes, we usually see an uptick of 2%. So you're expecting a much larger increase. So I'm assuming you're working with the assessors of every county and that they're bringing values back up because of an increase in value, that they had already done some reductions in values due to reassessments. Is that the delta that I'm looking for?
So there's a few components that feed into the growth in assessed values. You're correct that the bulk of properties year over year that don't change hands, they grow at most by 2%. But there are some other transactions that bring those numbers up. For example, new construction being assessed at its market value at that time and being added to the rolls then causes the overall values to grow more than 2%. You add on to that houses and other properties that are sold during a year and then are reassessed at their current market value, which may be a big bump depending on how long the property has been owned, and that adds some additional points onto the growth rate. So all of those factors combined lead to the estimate that we have.
Do we have a pie chart for those components?
I don't have anything prepared for you right now, but I can certainly get back to your staff and try to provide some of that information.
It'd be kind of nice to see, because that's kind of a unique trend. Nice to have it, but we know what it's like when it stops.
Pie charts are good. Any other questions? So that will be helpful. That would be helpful. Thank you, Senator Morlock. No other questions from the committee. So the recommendation is to adopt the LAO's estimates for property tax revenues. And a motion from Senator Hancock. Call the roll, please.
Leno,
Aye.
Nielsen,
Aye.
Allen, Anderson, Bell, Block, Glazer, Hancock, Mitchell, Monning, Morlock, Wynn, Pan, Pavley, Roth, Stone, Wolk.
12. I think 13.
12. 12. It's 12. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, it's 12. It's 12.
I'm sorry.
We have some vote changes, so
Nielsen, no.
No. Stone, I know.
Since I'm getting a pie chart, I'll stay where I'm at.
okay.
11 aye, 2 no. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're right. Yeah, 10-2.
The LAO's property tax estimates pass 11-2.
That's
3. You have Senator Stone as a no? Senators Nielsen, Wynn, and Stone as no.
oh, are you sure Wynn voted?